In this video, I'm going to walk you through Lesson 2 of Unit B1. Now, in Lesson 1, we looked at different conservation efforts around the United States. And now we're going to look to Africa and look at a case study in the Serengeti because it's very well studied and then we can learn lessons from looking at what they figured out with the Serengeti. So we're introduced to the Serengeti. Here's an opening slide. We have a picture and there's a quote saying that it's a place of outstanding universal value to humanity to be protected for future generations to appreciate and enjoy. It was established in 1951, and again, it was very well studied. We're also going to watch a video so we can see some of the animals that are in this park, and also there is a map. And this map really helps students understand where in Africa the Serengeti is located. You can see that there's a lake that is next to the Serengeti. It doesn't actually go all the way up to the ecosystem, but it's very close. It has partially a portion of the park is in Kenya and the other portion is in Tanzania. So this is just to help students figure out where in the world this Serengeti is located. We then read a little bit about the history of the Serengeti. So this article does a few things. It talks about, first of all, the timeline of protecting this park. It was not established until 1951, but it also talks about colonization and how people come in and take over an area and use the resources for their own benefit. It also talks about the Maasai people and their influence in this park and how they wanted to remain in the park because they have always lived there. So it gives a little bit of some ideas about interest holders, which is going to come back later in the unit. But this is just a real basic introduction about how the Serengeti came to be a protected area. And we're going to discuss the historical conflicts and conservation philosophies. And this is beginning to have students think about the nature-culture relationship. So people in different societies and different cultures have different ideas of their relationship with nature. And so this is a discussion we're going to talk about how did the people have, what were their beliefs about how humans and nature interact or their relationship when they set up the park. And you're going to see that different interest holders had different ways of looking at the human and nature relationship. And we're going to take some notes by picking two questions to investigate while we look at a scavenger hunt. And so you will see this is the handout that students will use. They're going to write down two questions right here, and then they're going to try to answer those questions with the scavenger hunt. Now, the scavenger hunt is a slideshow. The directions in the prep say to print out these pages. If you have a kit, they should be printed out. And then you can see that there are different slides for different types of things that they're going to look at. So this is about habitats. The yellow background is about biodiversity. The green background is about the movement of animals. And the blue background is about conservation areas. So you're supposed to put these in different corners of your room and have them visit these stations and gather information. There's one more. There's purple, people of the Serengeti. So you could do this digitally. I'll talk about in the prep video, but they're going to go to different stations. There's also a couple of videos that you will set up in those stations, and they're going to fill out their handout as they visit the station. Now, you're going to jigsaw this. So they're only going to go to one station and they're going to then come back and jigsaw, and they're going to share what we learned in our small groups, and they're going to complete a graphic organizer. So you can see that this graphic organizer looks similar to what was used in Lesson 1. It chunks the things into systems, components, interactions, and decision making. And so they're going to write down what they notice from what people share and what they wonder. All of this is really to focus on that overarching question of why did people decide to protect the Serengeti? How did they decide what to protect? These are kind of big questions that we can apply to any conservation effort and protection of land. We then have a self-assessment on the science and engineering practice of obtaining information and communicating information. So there is a self-assessment handout. Are they good at obtaining information or communicating information? More often, you need them to figure out that they didn't do something and they need to do it next time. Create a class consensus model, and we're going to do this several times in the unit where we use a teacher reference map. It has the map of the Serengeti, and it's going to be a place to kind of document what we figured out about the Serengeti. You will want to write some stuff around the edges and maybe put some sticky notes, maybe talk about migration patterns or whatever. You're going to do this several times. I will say that printing this out and using it under a doc cam is very useful, but you're going to need to have a little bit more space for more writing. This is what an example will look like once you kind of add some stuff to it. So if it's on a big poster paper, notice that there's more room on the sides than what that handout had. But we're going to talk about like, why are we protecting it? A little bit of tourism, and how did they decide what to protect? And in those slides, there'll be some stuff about wildebeest migrations, herds of animals, colonizers, letting the Maasai live there. So all of those ideas are going to end up on this consensus model. It's kind of just a dump of information that we got from the slideshow. And then we're going to complete our progress tracker. And this is an answer key for you to complete the progress tracker. There's two ways that teachers do this. One is when you're teaching students how to use a progress tracker, you might do this under a doc cam, and then you ask students for you ask questions and you get answers and you fill it out together, and they copy what you have talked about and what you're writing under the doc cam. Or its intended use is that you have students really think about these questions and fill out what they have figured out or what they have learned from this experience. So the latter is a more metacognitive strategy, helping them process the information. But I will tell you, students really struggle with this when they're just starting in their first unit. So a lot of times we scaffold this by maybe doing the first few entries together as a class and then releasing their responsibility to do it more on their own in the future. And that's it. It's a pretty easy lesson 2, and I will talk in the next video about the prep.